Next on the topics is we're going to talk about D-line, and we have Coach Brad Miller from the University of Ottawa, who is a very experienced with over 30 years of coaching experience, a former player for Oregon State before transitioning to coaching. He has spent time in both the NFL as well as the CFL. He has dedicated his career to helping players realize their potential both on and off the field. And we are excited to talk today. Coach, how's it going?
Good, good. Can you guys see me?
Yeah, you're good. So I'll hand the floor to you. And
okay, so you guys are going to have to forgive me because I'm not a big Zoom guy and I can't see myself. I'm going to share the screen. Okay, and I'm hoping you guys can see that.
Yes, can see it.
And the first thing I'm going to talk about is my general coaching philosophy. Okay, so I got this from Don Matthews, and he was big on it. Every player wants to do it the right way. Okay, our job is to teach them how to think, not what to think. And everything that you do on the field has to build a desired reaction for something that they're going to see in the game. The key to my coaching philosophy is communication from coach to player and player to coach. Central to that idea is that everybody wants to be the hero of their own story. And it's our idea as coaches is to shape the story in such a way that each player sees themselves as a hero in their role. It's especially important when you're coaching defensive line or offensive line, because those guys have to sacrifice a lot of what the other players are getting on the field. They have to subsume that in their roles. As coaches, we're not just teachers, we're salesmen and counselors. We have to help each player realize that the best avenue for individual success lies within the structure of whatever schemes we employ. I believe quite thoroughly that players are a reflection of their coaches, and what you bring to the field, they bring to the game. It's our job as coaches to help our players achieve that understanding so they can play at maximum speed. Okay, so the defensive objectives for the defensive front, the first thing we want to do is we want to play physical. Secondly, we want to play fast. And thirdly, we want to play with great effort. What we try to instill in our defensive linemen is the idea that we're going to get off on every snap. We're going to play with our eyes beneath the eyes of our opponent. We're going to be extremely active with our hands in our run and pass game. As a defensive front in the run game, for our interior two, we're either going to take two blockers or make the tackle. We're never going to be satisfied with just canceling our responsibility and trading one for one. We're going to recognize that in being great run defenders, it allows us opportunities to beat pass rushers, and pass rushers is where defensive linemen get any love that they're possibly going to get. We're going to understand how to react to offensive schemes and how our reaction affects our second level players. We're going to be aware of down and distance, personnel and formation indicators, and we do a pretty thorough job of coaching that as much as we possibly can. And obviously as a front, we want to consistently apply pressure in the pass game. The key teaching fundamentals for defensive line is alignment. So we use a gap numbering system and gap control rules. Assignment, we want to execute the discipline of the defense, and each defensive lineman should be responsible or should have the goal of having no yards in his gap. Okay. We talk about pre-snap keys. So our gap, stance, and eyes, the tip of the football in the snap, and the V of the neck of our cue in regards to our offensive linemen. The key teaching fundamentals of get off. We're going to anticipate the snap count, but we're not going to guess. A great stance and start for down and distance situations. So flat back in a rundown. We're going to get our butt above our shoulders in a pass down. And attack and stimulus with 3 points of contact. We want to have our eyes beneath the eyes of our opponent. We want to snap and lock out on contact. and we want to show color in our gap. For control, our hand placement, we want our hand on the sternum and the bicep to the gap of responsibility so we can show color in our gap. And we always want to be ready to escape and shed as the ball comes. And we're consistently going to work on pursuit. So either you're going to be in on the tackle or you're busting your butt to get to the tackle. Okay, the key teaching fundamentals for defensive linemen, in my mind, are stimulus and response. So the ball is always going to start the action, and whatever the V does, I must react and counter. How I react is a stimulus and response. So if I get a base block coming to me, my response is to squeeze. If I get a cut block, hands down, eyes up. Down equals trap. So if it's down and nobody's coming to block me, I have to look inside to see if anybody's coming to trap me. You don't want a guy who's running up field and getting kettled all the time. Reach means lockout and squeeze back. Pull, midline, cut off, you're going to rip through. Double, you want to get your hands on the V, or your hands in that same position we talked about earlier, and hip the double so that as he pushes me off, I'm not getting knocked past the gap. And when he goes up to the linebacker, I'm covered up by the player that I'm on, and I'm not showing color in my gap. High at equals pass. Influence is a trap. An arc, we're going to get our eyes back inside. Okay. The key teaching fundamentals for pass rush is we're going to anticipate the protection scheme by down and distance and position of the running back in the backfield or backs in the backfield, because we have to know who is blocking us, and we have to have a plan to attack them and be able to counter the offensive scheme. Okay. For our practice routine, practice tempo is coached. The energy the coach brings sets the tone. Practice drill should be set to correlate with the day's concentration. And I've always gone with a day 1, day 2, day 3 type of thinking. So day 1, we're worried about first down, which is usually run first and pass and play pass. Day 2, we're going to talk about opponent-specific keys and cues. And day 3, third down and whatever schemes we're going to employ for third down in relationship to pass rush games. We're always going to allow time for game-specific drills, unique blocking schemes, protections, etc. And I thoroughly believe that individuals should be the toughest part of practice. In my mindset, when we're going through practice, when the players get through practice, get through individual, they should say, okay, now we're going to go through team and the other things, and they're thoroughly vested in everything that you're doing. Okay. The best way to have carryover from drill to the field is to explain the why you're doing the drills, show them how it correlates to whatever you want them to do in the game, demonstrate the proper technique, and then drill it, drill it, drill it. This is really hard with no feedback, okay? So the run techniques, the first thing we're gonna talk about is get off the power stance. Your feet should be set about shoulder width apart, okay? Toe to instep stagger can be heel to toe, but you don't want a big stagger when you're defending the run because it takes too long to get that foot back in the ground. And if the offensive lineman catch you with your foot off the ground, obviously you have no power. You get your power from the ground. The body weight should be concentrated on your upfield foot. Your knees should be bent, lower back, and set to produce power angles. If we're talking about a run stand, we're talking about a flat back, so we have a good low-level entry. Hips and backs, again, should be creating a flat plane. Free hand, your down hand should be in front of your eyes. Your free hand should be cocked and ready. Down hand is 4 to 6 inches in front of your eyes. Okay, so when you're doing a get-off drill, power stance, reaction, there should always be a ball. Footwork, 2 short power steps. We're not gaining a lot of ground. Hands on takeoff, and finish is going to be lockout. The second thing that we do is a redirect drill. So we start in a power stance. We do a get off on the ball. We do our footwork. We give them a pass, draw, screen, or run. If it's a pass, it's a hi-hat, their pass rushing. If they get a hi-hat, but the offensive lineman isn't leaving the line of scrimmage, that's a draw set. We want to play into our offensive lineman or our dummy and squeeze down. If it's a screen, it's a draw set where they're leading a little bit and inviting you up the field. We want to react back to the offensive lineman and squeeze. If we block the screen, when we see screen, we're going to put our foot in the ground and redirect back to the line of scrimmage. If it's a run, we're going to squeeze left or right, and we always have a finish to every drill. Okay. Every day or once a week, we try to do sled work, and we work the run stance, reaction, quick hands, and we want to roll the hips for power. Sorry for that typo there. That should be hips, not his. We're going to be in a three-point stance, do the same thing with a power stance, the reaction, eyes, quick hands, popping the sled, working our feet, block out, power, escape to finish, and rip. We do the rip drill, and we have a grid. So we set up 1, 2, 3 bags in sequential order. And what we're working is our footwork, the same thing that we talked about, but now we're going to work a pivot crossover and come to balance. So this is really hard to explain because usually I jump up and demonstrate this. So the pivot crossover is a natural reaction when you're making a power move through a gap. You're going to take your inside foot. I'm not even going to, we're not even going to worry about that's not going to work because I can't demonstrate it. So the next technique we're going to do is we're talking about blocking schemes. The proper way to take on and defeat blocks, feeling the play, flow of the play, and maintaining good pad level. We're going to partner up. We're going to work that same footwork that we've talked about pretty consistently, the eyes and hands and finish. We're going to work one-on-one schemes. So in defeating the base block, we're going to partner them up, get them in their proper leverage, lock them up so the hands and feet are in the position that you want, and the eyes are down low. The opponent is going to start basing you and pushing you forward. You're going to grid down with your eyes underneath him and work your feet and hip down to it. You get in that same position where he's trying to reach you and he's pre-reached, so you're in a disadvantaged position where he's outside of you already. You're going to try to lock and bring your hips back around to get to him and bring him back up the field and through and around. But we're going to go to some tape because it's going to be easier to show you than to talk this through. So I've got some film here and I've got to go. Can you guys see the tape? Can anybody see the tape?
No, Coach. You might have to unshare and then share again.
Okay, so how do I do that in Zoom? I'm so used to.
So if you click on your share screen again and maybe just stop, and then you'll be able to click share screen again and then pick the film that you're. I got you. Now can you guys see the tape? No.
Let me go back again. Alt-tab. Now can you see it?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. So we're going to talk some techniques here. This is the free technique. And you can see his upfield foot is down, and the foot approaching the V of this net is back. This is a 2-eye as opposed to a 1. And in a 2-eye, that's the V of the neck that he's reading. And the foot to the V of the neck is back. He is playing a 5 technique. So this is his V, and this foot is back. So as we go through this snap, you can see that everybody's contacting and reading the inside V of the neck. Now, if he was playing a 7 technique or a 6 eye, it would be just reverse. This foot would be back, this hand would be down and be reading the V here, and this would be his first contact. But we're playing a loose 5 here, so it's just the opposite. Now, what we do get here is this player is doing a good job of eating this double, so we have a clean linebacker. Our 2-eye eats his guard, so that's his gap. This is his gap. He's our free player, and we shouldn't have any problems. And as you can see, we get good results here. Now, ideally, we'd like him to have his pads lower because he's going to take a lot of heat here. And as he comes here, what we'd want him to do is take that hip and sink it into him, because what he's trying to do is push him across into this gap so he can release up to this linebacker. But that's coach talk. We do a good enough job here where the linebackers are playing, and that's what we want. Now this is 2nd and 3, same situation, we'll go to the tight. And again, now we have a problem, because remember before when I did my presentation, or when I was talking in the slideshow, I talked about his footwork. His base is too wide and he has too much kick. So as this play happens, it's going to take this player too long to get his foot back in the ground, and he's going to get overtaken, and we're going to lose this gap. Now we had a stunt on here. So we're telling him to go inside. And this is one of those deals where this originally was the V of his net, or the V of his gap. As he goes inside, this becomes the V of his gap, but he has to see where this V is going, because if this V is going away fast, that means that this V has to be coming to him. And the hardest thing that happens when you have these stunts, when you're bringing people inside, is that their eyes go here, and this guy will overtake him, and you'll end up with the guy getting 2 gapped. So ideally, what we tell our players is, as you're making this move, you're making the move to the opposite V, still reading that V. That makes him slim enough, so if this guy comes here and they're running zone this way, which is what we anticipate with the back away, is that he's still going to have a chance to be in his gap. And he has some awareness because he's a little long, but he's fighting to get back in his gap. And this is where, when we talked about earlier about that get off and redirect, because as he sees that he's wrong and his gap is going away from him, he does a good job of plowing back. And what he's going to try to do here is, if he can't be in his gap, we want to put that offensive lineman in this gap, because we have to cancel these 2 A's where this punch is running with the linebacker running to cancel B. But we end up getting capped out pretty well here. This is another challenge that we have here. Because what we've done here is we put our defensive end in a 7 outside, telling him that we're going to squeeze this tight end back to this gap because we're trying to buy 2 with 1. So again, this ends up being okay for us, simply because we're working hard not to let or keep a flat plane on the offensive line. And these are all over fronts. Same thing here, we're playing a 2-eye. So the foot to his gap is down. Playing a 3, the foot to his gap is back, that's his V, that's his V. We're playing a 5, that's his V. And a really loose 7 here. So we're saying that he's gonna go hard enough here. If this tight end stays in, we're gonna push him down into this gap. Here's the challenge. Because he steps too far inside and doesn't get a vertical push, when this guy comes to doubling, what happens? He's collapsed over. He's too high. But again, the linebackers read out and we're okay. Let me see if I can do this more smoothly than I did it the first time. So I stop share, and then I go back, and I share screen. And I want to go back to the presentation. Share. And okay. And we're back in the presentation, and you guys can all see it?
Yep.
Okay. So now, our pass rush progression is we're going to work get off, our speed stance. When we talk about our speed stance, we're going to talk about our hand well ahead of our head. Our butt's going to be in the air above our shoulders. We're going to elongate that stance. So when we talked about the run stance, our feet are tight. Now we're going to get a big kick. And ideally, all the weight is on the front foot. So if you take that back foot off the ground, it doesn't make any difference because we want to take a long first step and gain as much ground as we can in the first step and try to get on those offensive linemen as quickly as possible.
Coach, when you clicked your from current slide, it didn't transition. So we're just seeing the run technique drills right now.
Okay, so I'm going to go back and go forward. You see it now?
I think it might have froze on your end. So maybe just unshare and share again.
Gotcha. You guys got it now?
Perfect.
Awesome. Okay. So when pass rushing, you always want to have a plan and one counter. And in my mind, no more than four tools in the box. You don't want to teach an if this and if that and give a guy a whole bunch of different things to do. Really, pass rush is really about get off and grooving and having one counter to the initial get off. We want to try to capture the line of scrimmage and get on the offensive linemen before they're ready for us. The better that we can do that, the more opportunities you're going to have to get to the quarterback. Great counters are stab on the edge, stubber bull inside, edge to edge, working one side, getting the offensive lineman to change his weight, and then coming back outside or inside. Speed to power, speed, stutter, speed. And those are all things that you can work as counters. But in my mind, the first thing that guy has to do to be a good pass rusher is be able to get off and get to the offensive lineman before they have their feet in the ground. Inside, the fight is usually going to start on your second step as a pass rusher. On the edge, it's usually going to start on their third step. If you look at the tackle and if you calculate where the quarterback's usual drop step is, you want to figure where's the point of interception going to be. If he's kicking and I'm rushing off the edge, how soon can I get up on him? Is it going to be 1.5 feet outside of his initial stance or 2 feet? And then you want to have a plan. If you beat him to that point, you're going to go by him. If he beats you to the point, what are your counters going to be? If you guys arrive at the point at the same time, then what are you going to do with your hands? Okay. So we've talked about the stance already. Again, your feet should be about shoulder width apart. You're going to elongate your stagger for comfort and speed. You're going to put your body weight, your entire body weight, on the inside ball of your up foot. Your knees are going to be bent to produce power angles. Your free hand is going to be in front of your eyes with your elbow bent and thumbs up. Your down hand is 6 to 7 inches in front of your eyes on a line just inside of the back foot. And your first step on snap should replace that down hand. So you're really talking about getting that foot down in an elongated stance, whereas in a run stance, you don't want that foot to be out of the ground that long. Okay. For pass rush technique drills, I like the gauntlet drill. And we'll do this 2 or 3 ways. The way we've been doing it down here is we take all of our defensive linemen, put them in a line about 1.5 yards to 2 yards apart. And a lot of people use the bags for this, but I like a line because the defensive linemen who are in the line can present their hands as an offensive lineman would do. And you could work on your feet, your pad level, and your inside arm chop, your outside arm chop, your rips and jabs, and all those things that you do with your hands with live hand presentation. They can work the left and right side, and I just have them go up and down the line. And the guy who goes to the back of the line moves up, and it's a way to really get a lot of reps. And we're always talking about finishing to the quarterback. We'll tighten that up and do a tight gauntlet drill where the players put their hands on the back, so it's just that little space, and we're really worried about our footwork and our hands and going quickly through and working that pad level reaction, right side, left side, and finish. Now, we can do the same thing with pop-ups. The deal with pop-ups is you're still working your hands and you're working your hands and your feet, and you can be much more violent with your hands. The challenge with pop-ups is that you're not getting that reaction that you need to get with the offensive lineman putting their hands and throwing their hands on you. It's more of a static reaction. But it's still second step for the interior rushers, third step for the guys on the edge. You're going to work footwork, hands, hips, pad level, and finish. Okay. Now, a lot of people work hoops, and the hoops and stuff are good. You're still going to work a get off. Now, when you're working the hoops, the thing that you have to really think about is where your player is pointing his toe to turn and to get leverage. And the thing that we've done is we always want to think about turning our toe as we're working around the hoop almost at a 60-degree angle. So turn that toe to 3 o'clock, turn that toe to 3 o'clock, turn that toe to 3 o'clock, all the way around the hoop So because you're worried about when you clear the hips of the offensive lineman that you're blocking, if your foot is pointed straight upfield, as you would naturally when you're running, when you're trying to turn, they have a tendency to get that foot on the edge, and that's where you see guys slipping out and falling down. If they turn their foot, they're going to get more traction, and if the offensive lineman gets their hands on them and pushes them, the natural torque that they're gaining by turning their foot toward the quarterback in the direction they want to go is going to fight the momentum that the offensive lineman is adding to them by pushing him in the back as you go by. You want to drop the inside shoulder and really work that inside shoulder and turning that toe so you can pivot toward the quarterback. And the foot pivot provides that extra torque to get there. And again, we're always worried about finish at the end of all these drills. So it should be set up so you're either finishing on the quarterback or finishing on the ball or scoop or some kind of positive action to reinforce the muscle movement and muscle memory that you're trying to get into them. Now, a lot of people work karate or any kind of hands drill where you're planning to defeat the hands of the blockers. You're working hand-eye coordination, reinforcing muscle memory. Again, that pivot crossover is essential in any type of hand action because you always want to talk about twerking your foot and turning your foot toward the target, which is always going to be the quarterback or the ball. You're working pad level and finish. Okay. So I'm going to go back here and unshare the screen and reshare the screen. And I've got to be smart enough to be able to do that. Does anybody have any questions as I sit here and okay, and you can see the screen again, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So now we're going to talk about the pass rush. No. And now we got it. The challenge here with quicks is that we've really got to work on being on the edge and knowing who's blocking us, especially when we're out here as a 9 technique. So when he starts his pass rush, his aiming point should be about 2.5 yards on the outside foot of the tackle. He's elongated his stance now, and really, he should be launching and trying to get it before this guy gets his hands on him. Your 1 technique has the most challenge in that he's still kicked here in this 2-eye because this is 2nd and 9. But as he transitions to a pass rush, he's going to be doubled. So really, you have to win with the guys who are getting singled, which should naturally be your edges and your 3 technique. And obviously, I haven't cut this for success. Now, what we're anticipating here with the back away is a 3-man slide this way, 1-on-1 with the back counting this guy. What our end does here, he does a great job of capturing the edge, and he does a great job of working his hands when that tackle puts it on him, so he gives himself a chance to clear it. What he doesn't do is he doesn't take this inside foot and torque it toward the quarterback So as he clears the guy, as he clears this tackle, with the hand on the back, the hand is just going to give him that last little bit of push to push him by the quarterback. Whereas if he turned his toe in this same position, he's going to have an opportunity to win. Now, the hardest place to rush out of for a defensive end is out of a 7 or a 6 high. Because he's playing here, but he can't quite get wide enough to leverage this guy. So he really has to work on getting vertical through and capturing the edge before this tackle can get to him. Our end here that we've taken outside of the tight end has a much easier time. Of these guys that we're watching. Okay. So this kid played at Oklahoma State. This kid played at Nebraska. This kid played at Utah. So these are all kids who have played 4 years of university and have been in NFL camps. So we're not talking about guys who haven't been coached, but they still have the same challenges that you see with everybody else. Now, again, he's anticipating the protection. He knows, since the back is here, that the center should be reading our run technique away. So the second he gets a hard set by this guard, he's going to come back inside, knowing that he's not going to get any resistance from the center. If the back was on the other side, then he couldn't make this move, because the center would hit him in the face. But he does a great job of getting upfield and attacking this guard before he's ready for him. And he gets penetration and makes it hard on the quarterback. Now, this is 1st and 10, and the hardest thing here is we're playing run. So we're all gapped out. The end who's free is free to the quarterback. And the thing that we get here is you see that momentary hesitation where he looks down the line of scrimmage? He's looking for somebody coming back. We know here in this particular scheme that the linebacker is on the edge, and the linebacker is going to take any cutback, so he's free to go. So we're going to get some. So now we have 3rd and 7, so we have a real pass situation. Okay. Again, elongated stance, big kick, big kick. We'd like him a little bit wider But he's beaten to the point he's got a counter. And he counters back inside. Transition back. I'll share the screen. Okay, so now I've tried to leave some time for any questions, if there are any questions.
Coach, so we do have a few questions. So in terms of developing, specifically at the younger levels, the pass rush technique for kids who maybe don't see, as many pass rush reps in game, especially at the younger levels where we're running a lot. What is the main focus for developing defensive line for, say, that 10, 11, 12-year-old kid at the younger ages? What are the main priorities that you would suggest?
In my mind, the biggest thing would be teaching get off, teaching them, how to start, stance and start, and how to get upfield, and games. Have them play tag so they can work on their change direction. Have them run the hoop, because that's something that's fun. And have them, if you have 2 hula hoops for young kids, 2 hula hoops, 2 balls, 2 cones, have them race the hoops. Start each kid at a cone, have them run the hoop, and really talk about turning that toe toward the center of the hoop and coming out, either catching the ball or stripping the ball and picking it up and recovering and scoring a touchdown, but make it fun.
In terms of, all the defensive line characteristics you're looking at, what is something that's most common that you look for in young defensive linemen that is a characteristic that you want out of your defensive linemen?
I'll tell you a great story is I was working with the Hamilton Junior Tiger Cats because my kid played for a couple of their summer things. And we were talking with young defensive linemen, and we worked a lot on movement and then being able to transfer from gap to gap and just get upfield and get after it. The hardest thing for defensive linemen is that whole deal that we talked about, taking double teams and really grinding it out. And for young kids, I kind of feel like that's a little bit unnecessary. We want to talk about being in gaps and moving from gap to gap and running upfield and being to attack to the heels of the offensive lineman rather than taking on blocks, because it's not as much fun and it tends to drive kids out of football. If that makes, that's really my opinion on it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So at the next level, what is something that
I am so sorry.
Go ahead.
That word, the next level, drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Because when I worked with the junior Ticats for that couple of summers when my kid was playing, when I've coached in junior college, when I've coached in American University, the CFL, the NFL, it is all the same level. It is all football.
That's good. Yeah, that's on. Okay, good. So I guess for in terms of developing your interior defensive linemen, and like you said, being able to recognize pass coverage or pass protection and understanding, the role of the center and shifting. What are some, skills that you can incorporate scheme for the defensive lineman, especially in the interior, to recognize where an offensive lineman is going to slide or, how they're going to adjust?
In my mind, the less you see, the more you see. With our interior defensive linemen, we've always just talked about seeing the V of the neck and seeing where the back is. Because if they're going to block with 6 people, they have to count. So one guy is going to count for each defensive lineman you're deploying. So if you're in a 40 front, 4 offensive linemen are blocking 4 defensive linemen. There's 1 extra offensive lineman. Where is that 1 extra offensive lineman going? If there's 1 back in the backfield and that back is offset, the extra offensive lineman is usually counting away from the back. If the back is at 0, as a defensive lineman, all you have to know is where the MAC linebacker is. If you know where the MAC linebacker is, you know either the back or the center has to account for the MAC linebacker. And then you know where the center or the backer is going to go. If you're a 1 technique, you have to believe 90% of the time as a young guy that center is counting for you. If you're a 3 technique, you're an edge player, unless you're really, really good. And you're getting big penetration, most of the time you're getting singled. So the only guy who ever has to worry about a double is the 1 technique. And whenever I've worked with younger people, I've always made sure that we played our front left and right, not nose and tackle. So if we moved our front, everybody has a chance to get beat up, I say.
Question. So do you find a 2-eye technique is better for backside run defender compared to a 1 technique because of the inside leverage on the backside guard? Or do your tackles often switch between 2-eye and 1?
The reason why, 2 eyes are for the linebackers. Just like playing a 6-eye is for the linebackers. Because in a 2-eye, what you're saying is you're buying the guard and the center has to respect the 2-eye. If you're playing a 1, it's easier because it's easier to read hand down, man down. But there's a better chance your linebacker is going to have to deal with guards. So, I mean, if you want a free linebacker and a free runner, you play a 2-eye, which is why I've always coached 2 eyes, because it keeps the linebackers clean. Or it gives a better chance for your linebackers to get clean. But the hardest technique to play in football is a 2-eye and a 6-eye. Because if you're playing a 2-eye, you're playing the V of the neck of the guard, but you have to feel the center. And if you're playing a 6-eye, you're playing the V of the neck of the tight end, but you have to respect and feel the tackle. So we talk about having 4 eyes. 2 eyes are your hands, and 2 eyes are the eyes in your head. So you're playing a 2-eye or a 6-eye. You have to use your 2 eyes on the man you're aligned on, which is either the guard or the tight end. But you have to have your other 2 eyes on that inside V of the neck. So it's really the only cross read that you teach in the defensive front. And it's an easy thing to say, but it's a hard thing to master, and it's harder work. For younger players, I would never play a 2-eye. I'd always play a 1, for the simple reason that it's easier to teach them how to play. It just puts a little bit more pressure on your linebacker because there's more of a chance that they're going to have to deal with guards on them.
Coach, how do you help to teach, young defensive linemen or defensive linemen in general to, guys want to make tackles, right? Like they want to be the guy who makes the tackle, but a lot of times, like you said, you got to eat a double or you got to maintain a gap. Or how do you, help prepare mentally kids for the role that they play in the bigger picture as defensive linemen?
Well, I always say this, and when you're younger, it may or may not apply as much, but as you get older, it becomes more and more true. The guys who get noticed on TV, the guys who get their pictures in the paper, are guys who hit the quarterback. And you can't hit the quarterback if they're running the ball. That's myself for defensive lineman.
That's a pretty easy, quick pitch, because that is completely true. Yeah. So, as especially in the Canadian game, where we do see a ton of quick game, right? Like, and we, how do you keep guys motivated to get hands up or try to be influenced in that quick 0.2 of a second where guys getting a ball, getting the ball out like you showed in the film. What tools can you give the guys to still play an impactful role in the quick game, when it's so fast?
Well, I mean, I think I had 2 clips of quicks where the front knocked it down, because in my mind, we're always attacking the line of scrimmage. We're always trying to play at the heels of the offensive lineman. And if we're doing that and the offensive lineman sits for a quick, we have an opportunity to bully him and get our hand up. And again, that's a TV play. And we live for the TV plays. And we talk about it all the time. Hey, let's go make a TV play. Let's go get our picture in the paper. How do we get our picture in the paper as a defensive lineman? Knock down balls, cancel the gaps so that they can't run the ball, so they have to throw it so we can knock down balls and tackle the quarterback. And everything is centered around all the speaking I do within the context of the game is, or the belief that every player, everybody is selfish. Everybody wants to do it for themselves. How can doing it for the other guys fall into doing it for yourself? And for defensive linemen, we cancel the run so we can rush the quarterback.
So yesterday, Coach, we had Coach Greg Marshall from the Western Mustangs talking about some offensive schemes, and one of the things that he really emphasized is putting the pressure on the defensive end by, with the growth of RPOs and zone read, and in our game where we can bring a fullback across the field, and he's got to worried about getting smacked, but then also have to be able to maintain gap. How hard is it becoming for the defensive end, specifically on zone read or RPOs, to have so many roles to play and have so many things coming at them? And how do you give them the tools to be effective?
I don't think it's any harder than it's ever been. And really, there's only one thing an end has to do. If you're a 5, you're going to read the V of the neck of that tackle. The RPO doesn't affect us. The RPO affects the linebackers. It affects the back end. We're still either canceling our gap or hitting the quarterback. And if the fullback's coming down to crack us, we have to have some awareness. But we're still canceling our gap. When the fullback comes, now we're just going to transfer our gap to him. We won't let those things distract us from our true read. And I'm not a guy who ever teaches multiple reads. There's only one read for a defensive lineman, via the neck to the quarterback.
That's great. One of the things that we've heard kind of throughout the weekend is simplifying things for guys and giving them a very clear indication of what their job is, no matter what's flying around them. And I think that's been a constant theme for kind of every position and for every system. So, Coach, thank you so much for sharing some of your insights and being able to, look at the film and get an insight on how you teach defensive line. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.